the northern kingdom, Israelites, giving all praise to Yahweh B'Hashem Yahushua B'Hashem Kakodash. This is a video. I'll put this up raw. If you can see, it's part one, the biggest secret whites kept from our minorities. This is put up by Elder Menatizak of the Chicago camp, leader of the Chicago camp, under the YouTube handle GMS Maccabean Spirit Bar. So this individual, one of the so-called Latin tribes, the Northern Kingdom, is being interviewed, and he's talking about how that the ancient language before the Spaniards came over was not Spanish, it was Hebrew. Now, I went to Mexico a long time ago, many moons ago, and you go to some of the ancient pyramids or whatever, it's not Spanish. You can see it's not Spanish. So they had a language before the Spaniards came over. But anyway, this individual that's being interviewed, he's been listening to us, because he mentioned Ham, he mentioned Issachar, and they were being called Aztecs instead of Issachar. He either listened to us or one of the other One West camps, for sure. You can hear it in the way he speaks. See, a lot of these people that come on YouTube and speak scripturally and about the Israelites, a lot of them watch our videos, but a lot of them won't actually come out and say, "Oh, I heard this from IUIC or GMS or GOCC or for that matter." But anyway, I'm gonna let you listen, and you can watch the whole video. This is 3 minutes and 14 seconds in of a 16-second video, because before the video at the 3-minute mark, prior to the 14-minute mark, the elder Malcolm, speaks, and he basically, builds you up for this interview right here. So, watch the whole video. I'm just watching the video. I'm not even halfway through. So I said, let me just put this up and give my piece, whatever precepts come to me. He did mention one precept, Elder Malcolm, which was Jeremiah 50 verse 33, and he said, if you look that up in Google, his face should pop up, meaning he goes with all the time. Well, I'm always thinking about that particular scripture, Isaiah 50 verse 33. Judah and Israel were oppressed together. Anytime I'm doing deliveries in the hood, you always see the same handful of people. You see some Issacharites walking up the street from work. You see Jake hanging on the corner. You see a couple of Ephraimites. You see a couple of Manassites. You see all the tribes. And they're all in the same hood. There ain't no Edomites around. At the end of the day, Esau goes back to where they live. And Jake lives among, Judah lives among Benjamin, Levi. Oh, there was one delivery I did, and this chick came in the elevator with me, and I just knew she was a Simeonite. But she had a little radio playing, and it was Levite Haitian music. And I can hear that was Haitian music. So I said, "Are you Haitian?" She said, "Yeah." And so I said, "Well, I thought you were Dominican." He said, a lot of people think I'm Dominican. Then we went into the thing about they're on the same island. But, there it is. And when I went in that elevator to make that delivery, this was about a month ago, 3 weeks ago. There was two Jakes standing out. You had to kind of press buttons to get in. And one Jake said, "No, I'm gonna let you in, bro." Let me in. I said, thank you. The water. Then I saw a couple other Jakes. I saw a couple of Ephraimites. I saw pretty much all the tribes. So that's a hell of scripture, I must say. Anyway, let me let you listen. And like I said, watch the whole video. After this, I'm going to listen to the rest of the video. But this is, these prophecies are coming to pass. Everything is lining up. This new thing on 60 Minutes about a microchip that can be planted into, it says the subdermal, which can read whether you have symptoms of the COVID or the the Crown Vic Royale, and you do something and it stops the virus in its tracks. Well, that's all you need. I was listening to Luke Radowski of We Are Change. Used to watch him. I watch him every night. Matter of fact, I ran into him years ago. He came to the camp. This was when Alex Jones was there, and he came and he talked, and we videotaped it. This was this had to be 2000, late 2007, early 2008. And we talked. It was him and a couple other guys, and we talked. He was there for about a good hour, and I kept calling him Baby Alex Jones. I said, "You're Baby Alex Jones," and he kept laughing. But he did say he was down with Alex Jones. But anyway, the video that he did last night, yesterday, he went into the 60-minute interview about that thing that they're going to implant in you. And he actually mentioned Revelation 13. He mentioned the mark of the beast. He said, "Is this the mark of the beast?" Meaning showing you that he's plugged in spiritually. And we told him that he was an Israelite. Even though he looked like an Edomite, we told him he's an Israelite. And many years later, he had he would go on with Jason Burmis, and they were talking about the Israelites. And he said, "Yeah, I ran into the Israelites, and they kept calling me an Israelite. As white as I am, they kept calling me an Israelite." Well, he has the spirit of an Israelite, even though he looks like an Edomite. So only time will tell. But when he spoke about that article, which we all know about, it just came out of nowhere. That gel that they put under your skin, which we told you that this jab, if it's not the mark, it's a prelude to the mark. It's an introduction to the mark. So this thing on 60 Minutes, and if I remember, I'll bring the video up and I'll put it in the description box so you can watch it. But anyway, let me get back into this. Let me let you listen to this dude. And listening to this dude, this Northern Kingdom brother, he either watched GMS, IUIC, IUCPK, GOCC, HOI, LOI, HODC, and the list goes on and on. If I didn't put your name in there, believe me, I'm thinking about y'all. I would, I'll be here for the next 5 minutes bringing out all these acronyms. Anyway, he listens to us. He knows some things, but his knowledge, I believe, has been enhanced by listening to us. So let's listen.
Okay, and you mentioned the indigenous language of the Aztecs or the Mayans? Both of them. You said it was connected to an old Hebrew, ancient Paleo-Hebrew. So does that mean that language?
You notice he said ancient Paleo-Hebrew. That's what we say. Paleo-Hebrew. Paleo meaning old, as ancient. So you don't have to say ancient Paleo. You can just say Paleo-Hebrew. Paleo meaning old or ancient.
That was indigenous to what Mexico and Central America is today was a Semitic language?
Yeah, so what the schools teach you is an indoctrination. You get inducted into this indoctrination of what they want to call you or what they tell you that you were. So for instance, our people get called Hispanic, right? So Hispanic, not knowing what that term means, we call each other Hispanics, but that was under the Spaniard captivity. When the Spaniards came in 1492 and, raped, robbed, and pillaged, the people of Mexico, how they knew you were under that captivity was by calling you an Hispanic, how you belonged to a family of a Spaniard that took you, you worked on their plantation, you were given their last name, like my last name, Ayala. That comes from whatever captivity my family got taken into. And maybe we have to work on fields, whether it was picking, tobacco or whatever that family had us doing. That's what we did. Now Latino is different. Latino's under the Grecian captivity. That's if you were Latino, or how they differentiated both of them is Latino actually meant that your bloodline dated back to a Grecian or a Greek. And people that are from down south, Guatemala, El Salvador, just South America.
All Israelites.
Their dads aren't Greek. We're still of this brown race. Like they call, black people or African Americans that are here now Africans, and they're not from Africa. They actually just got taken into captivity in Africa while fleeing Israel. Africans are Hamites. They're from the tribe of Ham. So they're just a different people, and that's why people in Africa don't accept the blacks that are here, the so-called blacks that are here in America, because they say those aren't our people. And
although you have, let me bring this back.
Shalom, call hello, Yahweh Bashem.
that had a blessed land that was promised to them, full of riches and rich soil and all this and that. He was looking up at the stars, and he didn't know how to use geometry. They'll never tell you. We came from somewhere. They'll never tell you, how we read the star people. And history, they won't teach you while fleeing Israel. Africans are Hamites. They're from the tribe of Ham. So,
although you have a lot of Israelites in the land of Ham, mainly in the west part, that's why all the flavors coming out of West Africa, Cameroon, Nigeria, that whole west coast of Africa, from the north down to the south of West Africa, that's all Jake. That's all Jake. The flavors coming out of West Africa. So those are Israelites.
they're just a different people, and that's why people in Africa don't accept the blacks that are here, the so-called blacks that are here in America, because they say those aren't our people. And history, they won't teach you. In my era, they taught us a little bit of Aztecs and Mayas and Incas, just a little bit, but they never tell you how our people got here. They never tell you. We came from somewhere. They'll never.
Yeah, and that's Second Ezra, the 13th chapter, reading from the 40th verse on down, and also going into Second Kings, the 17th chapter. How the northern kingdom, or the kingdom of Israel, was taken into captivity under the Assyrian king at that time, which was it was during the reign of his father Shalmaneser IV, and then came his son Shalmaneser V, when they had taken down the northern kingdom. And you read that, you can read that you can read the whole chapter, but read from the first verse down into the 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, and it tells you how they put other people, other nations into the land of Samaria, that's a whole different, that's a whole nother topic. But to finish it off, if you go back to 2nd Ezra, the 13th chapter, the 40th verse, it tells you how those tribes it took them a year and a half to come over here to the Americas, because they had sailboats and they were moving slow. And then it says, then they shall come. The they that shall come is the kingdom of Judah. So we were all to meet here in the Americas, mainly Babylon, which is North America, the good old USA. So let me let you listen to a little bit more.
Tell you, you know how we read the stars. We used a thing called cenotes, which were these ponds, reflection ponds, to read the stars. While Columbus was looking up at the stars, trying to read them, trying to find these holy people that had a blessed land that was promised to them, full of riches
and it tell you that Issachar had the sight to look up into the stars and see whether Israel was going to win a battle or lose a battle. So they would prophesy by looking at the constellation of the stars. And it says in Genesis 1:14, for signs, seasons, sign meaning omens, seasons, days, and years.
Rich soil and all this and that. He was looking up at the stars, and he didn't know how to use geometry using the reflection ponds, and that's how we got here. Our real name is not Aztec, it's Issachar. That's our real name. They gave us the name Aztec because it means people of time, because we kept time in numbers.
So we can stop it right there. So they know that they're the tribe of Issachar. All right, and a couple quick scriptures. This is in 33, which, you know, I used to bring out this scripture so much that if you Googled it, my face popped up. And and it might still do it. But nevertheless, this is
yeah, that is Jeremiah 50 and 33 pops in my mind. Anytime I'm in an area where you got a sprinkling of Jake, Benjamin, Levi, Judah, Issachar, any of them tribes, you know, that precept comes to mind quite a bit.
Jeremiah 50 and 33, and it reads, thus saith Yahweh of hosts, the children of Israel and the children of Judah were oppressed together, and all that took them captives held them fast, and they refused to let them go. And Judah and Jerusalem represent the northern kingdom, which would be the tribe of Issachar, the so-called Hispanics and natives. Judah representing the so-called Negroes. They've been in captivity together and didn't even know that they were brothers for centuries. All right, because you have to remember there was a split in the family in the ancient world. So them being brought back together here in the Americas was prophecy, and they were brought together in slavery because the slave trade started with the so-called Hispanics, which is a complete and total cut on you black only Israelites. And also now there's you ones down there in Pueblo, Colorado, you know, you Hispanic only Israelites. And just to clear up what the brother said, the Latinos with the Grecians and the Greeks and the Spaniards are all Edomites. That is the true nationality of the so-called white man, the white race, and that is something the so-called white race, and that is what they've been trying to hide for, you know, hundreds and hundreds of years. All right. So let me grab this book now. Let me go to page 99, and I read this the other day. Actually 95, and on this page I got a lot of notes, and I got 17 different sources that basically back up everything that we just spoke about. But I'll read those 17 sources again on another date at another time. But here you go. This is Indians and Israelites, page 95, from the book that I showed you in the beginning. Luis de Torres. Now remember, Cristobal Colon who the world ignorantly refers to as Christopher Columbus, was a Spanish convert Jew. All right.
Luis de Torres, I did a couple of videos on that devil, and he was one of the translators. Let's see if I'm right. I'm going to put this back on. He was one of the translators, the key principal translator for Cristobal Colon, and I believe he spoke 5 different languages. One of them was Hebrew. He spoke Hebrew, Arabic, Latin, and I guess Castilian, Spanish, and maybe another language which I forget. I got to go back to the source. But this man was a translator for Columbus, and they knew to bring him along with some other translator. He was a key one because they knew that they were going to encounter Hebrews.
And he came over here with 5 Hebrew interpreters. So why would he go looking for India if he came with 5 Hebrew interpreters? So you can begin to see the lies starting. Once you tell one lie, you got to tell others. Hence the name why they were referred to as Indians. In history, wrote that to avoid calling them Issachar, Zebulun, Asher, Gad, Reuben, etc. To avoid saying call.
Yeah, Brazil. The word Brazil is a Hebrew word. And when they first came over there, they called the land of Brazil, they called it after the word brass in the Hebrew is barazal. I'm sorry, iron. They had iron, brass, oil, gold, silver. But there was a lot of iron down there, and they called it Barazal, which is Brazil. It's a Hebrew word. Brazil is a Hebrew word. Barazal, iron.
Calling them that, they just called them Indians. All right. But Luis de Torres, the first European who discovered the use of tobacco. See, he mentioned tobacco slavery. All right. Was also the first person of the Jewish stock who settled in Cuba. He won favor of the ruler of the Kaki. I think that means a chief. All right. And received from him presents, not merely lands, but also slaves, 5 adults and a child. The king and queen of Spain granted him a yearly allowance of 8,645 maravedis. I guess that was Spanish money back then. And he died in the newly discovered land. All right. Columbus found natives who had their own kakis and their own language and traditions, but they didn't tell you that that language was a Semitic language, which was actually connected to the ancient Paleo-Hebrew. They left that part out when they wrote this book. This book was written by a convert Jew, Mayor Case.
See, and you can't get around it, man. This truth, if you don't accept the scriptures, there's other evidence you can go by. There's a book, History of the Indian or the American Indian by James Adair. And in the book, he said he traded amongst them, and he came to the conclusion that they had to be Israelites because they were speaking Hebrew. And they were keeping Israelite customs. So he said, these are the Israelites.
Certainly. All right, so he knew that these people were the real Israelites, the real people of the Lord. All right, to what race did these Aborigines in Americas belong? Several writers have asserted and have displayed much learning in attempting to prove that the Aboriginals or Aborigines were descendants of the Jews. All right, and it says, this result was reached already in the 16th century by Spanish clergyman Rodman, Rodman is one of my sources. His arguments were derived from an unpublished manuscript which he discovered in the library in San Pablo in Seville, Matosinhos, and possessed the manuscripts of Luis Lopez, and learned Bishop of Quito was convinced that the Peruvians were of the Jewish origin. All right, they were the Israelite origin. See, they keep using that word Jewish. Jewish are basically the Edomites who converted to Judaism. All right.
And the Peruvians, I used to work with some Peruvians, and they used to tell me, in Nazca, Peru, you have a lot of UFO sightings down there. Like you go there any given night, you'll see some activity up in the heavens. But they called them omnis, because I was telling them UFOs. They said no, we call them omnis. And they knew that they were angelic angels in them ships.
Right. It says the view of Roman and Gregorio Garcia, the Aboriginals of America were descendants of Jews. All right, was maintained with many arguments in the same year, 1650, independently by Englishman Thorogood, and he's also one of my sources, and by Portuguese Jew Manasseh ben Israel, the renowned rabbi of Amsterdam, who induced Cromwell to allow the Jews to return to England, seeing Cromwell was the one who got rid of all the Israelites out of Ireland, Scotland, and Britain, out of England. Okay? Remember that. A Portuguese Moreno, now Moreno, when you look up the definition of Moreno, it tells you there's a Negro, a Jew, or a Moor, because those cryptos Jews, those Moriscos, all right, which many of them were race traders because they actually helped oppress and take their own people into captivity, working with Esau, Edom. And a lot of them will refer to themselves as Moorish today. All right. It says the Portuguese Moreno of Villafort, who strange to say also called himself Montesinos, and afterwards assumed the name of Aaron Levi, informed Manasseh that he had mingled in South America with Jews of the 10 tribes. See, and where will we find it out? In the Apocrypha. All right, and second Ezra 13 and 40. So that's where they came from. It gives you how they left the so-called Middle East, sailed around.
And I believe it mentioned the 10 tribes. It says another peaceable people. And it goes on to say, and then they shall come. They are Judah, Benjamin, and Levi.
Down out into the Arabian Ocean, down around the Horn of Africa, over into the Americas. It explains that. All right? But it says Manasseh's book attracted much attention and was translated into Latin, Spanish, Dutch, English, Italian, and Hebrew, nor has it ceased even to this present day. So there's been many books written. As a matter of fact, and at the bottom of this book, the pages of these books, they show you the resources. If I can get it to focus, they show you there it is. The resources of this information. This is what I love about those books. Where they came from. All right? So, everything that I'm reading is showing you the resources of where they came from. And they're all from the 1600s. All right? This treatise of the origin of the Americans was reprinted 12 years ago by Spaniard Santiago Perez Junquera. The descendants of the Americans is, in fact, a question which has often been discussed since the discovery of America down to present day, even in recent times. The Englishman Lord Kingsborough, also one of my sources, devoted his time, his attainments, and greater part of his large fortune to the publication of a collection of American documents in order to prove the Jewish.
So these devils know, man. They know. And they put these books together and this evidence together for themselves, not for us, not for the Negro on the corner. They put it together for themselves because they know, but it's a well-kept secret. Not anymore. But anyway, I stopped it at 15 minutes and 11 seconds in. You can watch the last minute of it. You And you can watch the whole video that was put up by Elder Malcolm. Anyway, I ran into the video. I kind of watched it. It made me wanted to kind of do a response to it. You know me. Hey, all the pieces of the puzzle are coming together. We almost out this bitch. Anyway, with that, I'm going to say shalom.